So there's there's a topic that I've seen it on TSN, and I've seen it on Hockey News, and I've seen it everywhere, and that's the debate about whether or not Connor McDavid is the MVP this year. My answer to that is really. Now, Connor McDavid was the MVP last year when Edmonton had 103 points and were second in the Pacific. Year before, Patrick Kane, Chicago, 103 points, third in the Central. Year before, Carey Price, Montreal, 110 points, first in the Atlantic. Crosby, Pittsburgh, 109 points. Ovechkin, Washington, 57 points in the lockout-shortened season, first in the Southeast. Malkin, Pittsburgh, 108 points. Perry, Anaheim, 99 points. Sedin, Vancouver, 103 points. Ovechkin in Washington, 108 points. 94 points the year before, first in the Southeast both seasons. Crosby, Pittsburgh, 105 points. Thornton, San Jose, 99. St. Louis in Tampa Bay, 106, first place. Peter Forsberg, Colorado, 105 points, first place. Jose Theodore, Montreal, 87 points, and without Theodore, they don't make the playoffs. There's no chance. Sakic, Colorado, 118 points. Pronger, St. Louis, 114 points. Yager, Pittsburgh, 90 points, third in the Atlantic. So the lowest point total over a full season any of these teams had was Montreal with 87, and they were a team that couldn't score. The next nearest is Pittsburgh with 90, and that Pittsburgh team was starting to recede quickly from where they'd been, and Yager was really holding things together. When you look at this list, other than realizing it's been a while since a defenseman or a goaltender that wasn't named Carey Price has got into this conversation, the Hart Trophy becomes quite a big deal, and it usually goes to a player whose team's in the playoffs. The one thing that all of these players have in common is their team went to the playoffs. Giving an MVP to Connor McDavid this year, it feels to me like fan service. So if Connor McDavid somehow won the Hart Trophy on a team that didn't make the playoffs, meaning he's more important to a team that didn't make the playoffs than Taylor Hall is to Jersey for their playoff run if they get there, or Nathan MacKinnon for a playoff run for Colorado should they get there, seems kind of weird to me. And again, it seems like fan service. Gretzky didn't win Hart trophies when his team wasn't any good. That's not the way the Hart Trophy works. If the team isn't very good, you can't then take a look at a guy and go, yeah, but he's the MVP of the league. No, he can win the Art Ross. That's fine. But to give a guy the MVP of the NHL when his team misses the playoffs, to me seems really weird. And to me, it's kind of a kick in the face for the 16 teams that made the playoffs and the players who are the MVPs on those teams. And every team has a guy that you look at and say, wow, they're in the playoffs in large part because of this player. Right now for Pittsburgh, you could make the argument Malkin belongs in this conversation. And yet, Malkin's not being talked about at all. And yet McDavid is. I hear McDavid, Hall, and McKinnon the most. And yet, the most recent post I saw was it's a two-Mac race between McKinnon and McDavid. And I don't see it that way. If the NHL decides to give the Hart Trophy to a player who plays on a team that didn't even make the playoffs, I'm not sure what he's the MVP to. I don't get it. And I mean that. And I don't mean that as an insult to Connor McDavid. McDavid may be the best player in the league, but to say he's MVP of the league just seems a little off. You look at all these players, and they all elevated their teams. Even Corey Perry, as much as we may not like him now, Perry had 50 goals that year. He's only 50 goal scorer. And without Perry and his 50 goals, Anaheim's nowhere. And that year with Corey Perry, they were second in the Pacific with 99 points. So to me, that matters. To me, that's important. I just wonder, does this now mean that we're just going to hand the Hart Trophy just to the best player in the league? Which is not necessarily what that means. You look at this, these are the MVPs. It's not saying best NHL player. That's completely different. Best NHL player, yeah, it'd probably go to McDavid every year. It's about the MVP. I don't know if at the end of a year you'd look at these guys and say, this person was the best player in the league all year. Sure, Crosby, Malkin, Ovechkin, maybe. But if you're going to qualify it as the best player, shouldn't you hold off on voting until the Stanley Cup playoffs are over? Because if it's going to be who the best overall player is, we can all agree that playoff hockey brings out the best in these guys that go to the Hall of Fame. So maybe we shouldn't vote before the playoffs. And I've been an advocate of that before. I've stated before that the voting before the playoffs, I'm not a huge fan of it. But I'd be interested to know, for hockey fans watching this right now, does the McDavid for Hart Trophy nomination talk bother you at all? Because you look at where Edmonton's in the standings, and I know people are going to say, well, they'd be the worst in the league without McDavid. Okay, and that's probably true, but they're still not in the playoffs. And all these guys on the board behind me were all in the playoffs. And I'm pretty sure that if I trace the Hart Trophy back to its inception, I think you'd have a hard time finding somebody on a non-playoff team that won it. This isn't like the Conn Smythe where a player on a losing team in the Stanley Cup final can get the Conn Smythe. It's completely different, because the Conn Smythe, you're on a team that got close. The Oilers aren't close right now. They're 15 points out of the playoffs. They're sitting with 76 points, or 74 points in 76 games, 6th in the Pacific, and 15 points out of the playoffs. I'm not taking anything away from McDavid. McDavid likely wins the Art Ross this year, and he deserves it. He's been great. But the Hart Trophy, that'll make me twitch just a little bit if we're watching the awards show and he gets the Hart. I'll probably get a nervous tick out of that, because that just, to me, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. So let me know your thoughts on the matter. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.